I would describe Idols as a beautiful, chaotic mess of violent noises where everyone's trying to battle against each other at any one time. I'm Dev from Idols and I play Roto Sound strings. It's been a wild ride so far and I never thought that we'd achieve as much as we have achieved. I'm constantly shocked and constantly surprised whether it's been nominated for Grammys or, you know, nominated for a Mercury Prize. Like, all of this stuff is like, you know, beautiful. And it's like playing Glastonbury, for example, is something that we spoke about as like a band starting, and you have those conversations where you're like, oh, what stage shall we play? You know, and you played 6 gigs or whatever, and you're already thinking about that side of stuff. So to be able to actually do those things is like, it's massive for us, and it means a lot, and it means the world. And I hope that we always show how appreciative we are, you know. I'm the quiet one at the back that makes the shrill bassy noises that tries to cut through against the shriller higher pitched noises, otherwise known as playing the bass guitar. When I first started, I didn't know what I wanted to play. I went for a couple of lessons with a guitar teacher and he was like, well, what do you want to play? And I was like, I had a cassette and it had some tracks on that I wanted to learn. And one of the tracks was Love Will Tear Us Apart by Joy Division. And I was like, I want to play that. I didn't know what it was. He was like, well, here's a bass guitar, there you go. And, you know, the more I've played and the more I've learned over the years, it's just, the bass is where my ear goes to, and it's what I get excited by, and it's what I feel more than anything else. So I think I've definitely picked the right instrument for what I'm interested in, you know. Roto Sound are my go-to strings and always have been. I've used them since I picked up a bass guitar. Even when I didn't really know what I was on about, it said the word bright, hard-hitting tone on the packet, and that is exactly what we were after, and they didn't let me down. So thank you, Roto Sound, and thank you, Roto Sound Swing Bass. You make me happy. Thank you. So this is the bass guitar that my nan bought me when Idols very kind of first started. She bought it me as a Christmas present one year, and it's got a lot of sentimental value. It's seen a lot of things. It's had a lot of drinks spilt down it. It's seen a lot of sweat, and yeah, I cherish this bass, and yeah, I hope it stays with me for a very, very long time. And it sounds very good as well. I think Brutalism was recorded on this one. Quite a lot of Joy as an act of resistance as well was done with this one, from what I can remember. It's definitely in the mix. Yeah, this has been my go-to workhorse for the early years for sure. Yeah, it's yeah, a lot of sentimental value, you know. I think if we'd have formed in London, or we were living in London and we did what we did at the start, and then people thought that, you know, it wasn't good enough or whatever, you know, we could have got chewed up and spat out quite quickly, and I think it would have dented our confidence. But in Bristol, everyone's so nurturing and forgiving and allows you that time to develop and grow as an artist, and I think that that has been integral and massively important to us, because we were learning and we were terrible for a long time, and like, you know, we needed that time to be able to get better and to improve, and we wouldn't exist if it wasn't for Bristol being that forgiving, essentially. It doesn't care about looking cool in the eyes of the world, you know, it's just happy doing its own thing, and that's a spirit and an ethos that I hope that we kind of carry on through, really. We've kind of done whatever we've thought felt natural to us, and we've also wanted to kind of expand ourselves musically, so I think it's progressed on through the years in quite a natural way, and I hope that we get to continue on that journey and be able to, you know, bring in other influences and stuff that you might not primarily think that we'd be into, you know. The beauty of having a singer who doesn't play instruments within the band, like even though he can play instruments, he's sat there as a listener, he's got a very good ear and he can listen and he can be like, well, that's not right there, like, oh, that needs to change. And I think that's kind of invaluable and been very useful for us as musicians. If you're playing, you're just thinking about how it sounds and what you're playing, and you can enjoy yourself and you can get lost in it. And so thankfully we do have Joe there, because otherwise, you know, it could end up being a little bit jazz funk in places, a little bit self-indulgent sometimes. And if there's any jazz funkers out there, you know, that's all for you, it's just not for us, that's all I'm saying. So if we're trying to like work on a track, we will be very considerate about what everyone's doing sonically within the frequencies of where we are. You know, if the bass line's like slightly MIDI, then it'll be like, okay, well then Bowen can go and do the lower end stuff, and then that will leave Lee the opportunity to do the highs and stuff. You know, the more that we're learning, the more that we're kind of understanding that, you know, even the toms fill out a certain frequency that kind of could clash with the bass or whatever. So you just try and be aware about what we're doing as you're writing it, you know, and that includes like where you're playing it, tonally, what you're doing. You can mould the tone to kind of suit the song and the part and where it is, and just make sure that you're getting as full a sound as possible, you know. On my basses, I'll put 105s on my standard tuning, I'll put 110s on my drop D tuning for that slightly thicker tone. But I've quite enjoyed playing with some flat wound strings at the moment, and although it's not primarily in the Idles sound right now, it's definitely a very, very interesting tone, and it makes you play differently and it makes you think about what you're doing in a different way. I find myself playing more melodically with the flat wounds, and I feel that I'm learning a lot more about the bass from playing with them. So yeah, it's been great so far. Very nice strings. Well done, Rotor Sound. Well done. A lot of the kind of hip-hop stuff is where we get a lot of our kind of subby, bassy tones from, you know, and some of the times it's me and Bowen sharing the low-end stuff, because there's like a certain tone that the bass guitar can't quite hit, but Bowen can fill all that out with his bank of pedals that he uses, you know. So yeah, I think hip-hop and techno has been like just as big of an influence over what we do and the tones that we try and get as anything else, really. You know, apart from that, the Stranglers bass tone I think is still the best bass tone ever committed from a rock band. Contemporaries, I mean, I don't think there's anyone better or more interesting than Gilla Band at the moment. The sounds and the tones that they get out of their instruments are so interesting, and at points like none of them sound like the instruments that they're playing, and I think that's really interesting. And if you don't know them, go and check them out. I used to manage an amazing community-owned music venue in Bristol. They allowed me the opportunities to be able to go off and tour when I needed to tour, and they understood the importance about, you know, being in a band and what it meant to me. So they were always very forgiving when I had to take a bit of time off. But then I'd always got a little bit too busy, and I had to stop it, sadly. But I do miss it, and there's a romance about seeing bands that you absolutely love in venues, you know, of that size. And you know, you need those venues because they're very important for artists to learn their craft and learn what they're doing. You need those venues where it is a guy going up and smashing a cymbal through a distortion pedal for an hour. You know, it's from there that you get the, you know, real interesting stuff in culture, I find. Yeah, long may the independent venues continue. It's been a long journey of self-discovery and hopefully self-improvement and learning. I don't think you ever stop growing as a person, and I'm just thankful that we've managed to do it with, you know, 4 of my best mates. I feel very lucky to have been afforded the opportunity to go on this journey with those guys, you know. Yeah, you know, it's been a few fuck-ups on the way, but that's what happens, eh?